Hi everybody, my name is Ralph Goldsmith and I'm a landscape photographer. Originally from the UK, but I've been living in Spain now for nearly 4 years. Based in the town of El Campello. I have easy access to coastal scenes, some just a few minutes walk from my home, and I can be in the mountains within a 20-minute drive. I like to mix up my landscape photography. Seascapes, mountains, lakes, and when I can find them, waterfalls and even woodland. I love to find unspoilt scenes, but I'm also fine with including man-made structures in the scenes if I think it works. I post my work in a variety of places and I maintain a small portfolio of my best work on my website. Probably my largest collection of work is on Redbubble. In 2017 I started my YouTube channel. I do offer one-to-one and small group workshops here in Spain, and these are tailored to the needs of the individuals and can range from a few hours to several days depending on what people want. When Alan asked me to judge the 40 images, I had no idea it was going to be such a challenge for me. The quality of the images I have reviewed has been superb, and the hardest part has been marking any of them down, but I had to find a way. I hope that you find my comments both balanced and constructive. They are certainly intended to be that way. I really enjoy seeing these diverse and wonderful images. Image 1, Alone. Beautifully posed and exposed image. I like the treatment of the background, but I'm not sure if I like the way it softens some of the actual subject rather than just the background, although that's probably a very personal view. I score this image 24. Image 2, An Honest Thief. I love the gritty griminess of this picture, which is enhanced by the slightly blurred background and the darker vignette. I score this image 25. Image 3, Ancient Ice. The colours and patterns in the ice are amazing and the image is beautifully exposed. I do find my eye drawn to the brighter wave behind the main subject and wonder if the image would be better without that distraction, or if the shot had been timed with the wave a little further back in the frame, clear of the ice. I score this image 24. Image 4, Bar-tailed Godwits. I love the name of these birds. The image is beautifully timed and shows every detail. The landscape photographer in me longs for some nice light on the scene, but I know that much wildlife photography is done in flatter light, and this is still a really beautiful image. I score this image 25. Image 5, Bithy. I really like the composition and the position of the three elements. The treatment suits the subject really well. Although I'm personally not a fan of the frame effect used, it does seem to work well here. I do wonder if it would have been possible to adjust the composition or the crop to avoid cutting off the bottom of the rear wheel. I score this image 23. Image 6, Breakfast. A beautifully set up still life. Each item is perfectly positioned and I really like the richness of the wood and the reflection in the spoon. Although the engraving on the handle of the spoon is a slight distraction for me. I score this image 24. Image 7, Crane. An amazing and characterful bird portrait. I love the colour and the detail in the image, and the blurred background really makes it pop. Although if the background were a bit darker, it would probably work even better. Image 8, Crested Tit. A beautiful bird portrait, lovely detail and a beautiful soft background. I like the colour and the tiny catchlight in the bird's eyes. I score this image 24. Image 9, Daisy Brook Farm. Wonderful combination of soft light and dark dramatic background. The foreground cow is beautifully picked out and that tree is a beautiful shape. The only thing that is distracting me slightly is the back half of the cow in the background immediately behind the main subject, but I guess you couldn't do much about that. I score this image 24. Image 10, Early Morning in New York. Great atmosphere in this cityscape. Interesting colour tones in the background with the turquoise colour at the top and then the pinkish cloud lower down. The light is a bit flat, which means that the details aren't standing out that much, and I can't help but wonder what the scene would have looked like a little bit earlier when there were perhaps lights on. I score this image 23. Image 11, Early Twilight. I love the subtle tones and the grouping of the cows. The scene doesn't have a lot of contrast, but I think that works really well with this image. I do wonder if the cow just to the right of centre has just turned away, and pressing the button a fraction of a second earlier would have resulted in the cow looking at the camera and made for a stronger image. Of course, that's always the challenge with including animals in the scene. They have minds of their own. I score this image 24. Image 12, Elter Water Dawn. I really love the atmosphere of this one. Great tones in the mist and the clouds. The trees are beautifully shaped and reflect very nicely, and I like the subtle light on the grass to the right of the scene. I score this image 25. Image 13, Fallen Hero. Great colours in this. It's a powerful image that really pulls me in and creates a desire to know more about this fallen hero. I score this image 25. Image 14, G-string. Great black and white studio shot. I like the dark background that blends into the dark tones on the guitar, and even the darkness of the model's makeup with the fine details on the guitar and the paleness of the model's skin standing out. I score this image 24. Image 15, Gormley's statue. I like the sense of isolation in this one, and it makes for a great black and white. There seems to be an unevenness on the horizon that I find a tiny bit distracting against the otherwise smooth surface. I also wonder if a slightly lower or higher viewpoint would have moved the statue up or down more compared to the horizon, and that may have looked a bit better than having the horizon run through the statue's shoulder line. I score this image 23 points. Image 16, Vik, Iceland. A beautifully simple composition with the background fading into an atmospheric haze. There are some flowers and some dark foliage right in the foreground that keep catching my eye and pulling it out of the frame at the bottom. So that's a minor distraction. I score this image 24. Image 17, Ilfracombe, Devon. A nice black and white scene with some great contrast. The upper left hand side of the image feels a bit cropped off, and I wonder if a slightly lower viewpoint would have made the foreground change stand out more and help draw the eye in. The image also has a slightly grainy look, especially in the sky. That may have been intentional, but from a personal point of view, I think those white clouds would look better if they were clean and fluffy. I score this image 22. Image 18, Habanero. The subject matter is a tricky one, as it's highly emotive. This doesn't mean it's a bad image, of course, far from it, and the technical execution is superb, with the detail and the movement perfectly captured. I score this image 24. Image 19, Lego Braise. I love the background with the clouds around the mountains, and there are some beautiful reflections and colours in the water. I do find the large rock in the centre of the foreground a bit overpowering and distracting from the background beauty. I score this image 23. Image 20, Lake Braise. Beautiful atmosphere with the clouds and the mountain, and I love the colours and reflections in the water. The house and a jetty make nice lead-in for the scene, and the boats break up the reflections and add a bit more interest to the midground. I score this image 25. Image 21, Last Night at the Wreck. I like the mood of this scene. The remains sticking out of the water make a nice contrast to the moderate length exposure that keeps nice texture in the water. I do feel there's a lot of negative space in the foreground. I wonder if a crop to remove some of that would make the wreck stand out more. I also wonder, given the lack of much colour, if a black and white conversion would be much stronger. I score this image 23. Image 22, Men in Grey. I like the sinister feel to this one. There is something threatening about the giant shadows and the small figure almost out of the bottom of the frame. It's a shame the uppermost figure's head is split in two by the beam, and I feel it loses a bit of impact as a result. Maybe a tighter composition with only one shadow would have been stronger. I score this image 23. Image 23, Mountain Rescue. What a dramatic scene. I don't know if this is an exercise or a real rescue, but it captures the action perfectly. Maybe a slightly longer exposure would have put some blur into the rotors to give them a sense of movement, but I don't know if that would add anything to the image or not, and it may have caused other problems with moving subjects in the frame. I score this image 24. Image 24, near Granada, Spain. I like the contrasty black and white. The shape of the structure with the repeating arches works well. I'm not completely sure about the bushes coming in from the left of the frame, and it's a shame that one side of the sky has no cloud. I can't help wonder if a slightly different composition, perhaps moving to the right a bit and tightening it up a bit more, would have made for a more balanced and stronger image. I score this image 22. Image 20. Image 25, Night House. Great night sky with some subtle dark tones and plenty of stars. I like the textures in the old house and in the grasses in front of it. I score this image 25. Image 26, Polaris. I like the composition with the alignment of the staircase and its reflection. Really nice contrast that works well for the black and white. I do think that the reflection area is a bit busy with all the angled lines across it and reduces the overall impact for me. I score this image 23. Image 27, Sofia Torrevieja. I like the out of focus graffiti receding into the darker background, and there's some great colour pop on the model's clothes, but for me it's her expression that really makes the image, and the photographer has captured it beautifully. I score this image 25. Image 29. Storm Ophelia hits Longship's lighthouse. I love the drama of this image. The power of the waves crashing into the lighthouse is amazing, and the choice of black and white is perfect with the darkness of the structure and the rocks. The square crop also works really well. I score this image 25. Image 28, Spot and his catch. This is another one where the subject matter may present some challenges for some viewers, but it's a beautiful image of this working dog doing what it's trained to do. There's a great detail in both the dog and the pheasant, and the background blurs away nicely. I do find the toe of the boot emerging from Spot's side a little bit distracting, but not too much. I score this image 24. Image 30, Sunday sunset. I love the vibrant colours of the sky, and there's some really nice patterns in the cloud. I do feel that the image needs something extra to pull the viewer into the scene, and the low silhouette of the landscape is not quite enough to do it. I score this image 21. Image 31, Sunset and Thunderstorm. Great colours and drama in the sky and really nice reflections. The scene feels a little bit one-sided to me, and I wonder if it would have been possible to compose this image so that the rocks in the foreground were on the left of the frame while keeping the brightness of the sunset on the right, as it would have balanced the composition a lot more. I scored this image 22. Image 32, Sunset over palm trees. Great clouds and colours in the sky, and I love the silhouettes of the palm trees, especially those tall ones, nicely isolated. The foreground detail doesn't seem to be doing much. It's very dark, but there is just a hint of something there that keeps pulling my eyes away from the main focus of the image. I score this image 23. Image 33, terraced houses. I really like the composition, with the houses sloping away and then curving over into the distance and pointing the viewer towards the background hills. Black and white works really well. The only slight distraction for me is the car in the bottom right hand corner. Probably nothing that can be done about it except going back another time when the car isn't there. I score this image 24. Image 34, the Dolomites. I love the mountains in the background with the rugged shapes and atmospheric clouds. I'm not sure about the big rocky shape in the foreground. Because it's so large, it pulls the attention away from the main event, those mountains. And I wonder if moving to the left and maybe going for a slightly longer focal length would have been better. I score this image 24. Image 35, the hotel. This works really well with the angles and the lights as a black and white. I like the structure of the image and the contrast. The challenge with strongly symmetrical shots is they have to be spot on. And I think the composition was fractionally off centre. Because although the diagonals are symmetrical, there's something slightly off symmetrical about the windows. I score this image 23. Image 36, tree on Buttermere. I love the shape of the tree, and there are some beautiful colours in this scene. I think placing this tree in the centre of the frame, rather than using the rule of thirds, works really well for this subject. The colours of the sky and the water look a little odd. I'm not sure if that's a result of processing or if it was like that at the time. I score this image 24. Image 37, Valenthian dancer. Very nicely exposed and nicely detailed. At first I wasn't sure about the lights in the subject's eyes, but I actually think they work quite well as the eyes themselves are so dark. I do find the other child's face in the background a bit distracting, especially as it has some red eye. Also the fingertips coming in from the right hand edge of the frame keep distracting me, as does the arm with the bracelet on it in the background. I score this image 23. Image 38, Varanasi Man. I love the gritty black and white look that suits this character so well. Wonderful textures in his skin, beard and clothing. I suspect that some of the background blurring has been done in post-processing, as this has left a few little halos that I find slightly distracting. I score this image 23. Image 39, water and moss. Beautiful colours in the rocks and moss and nice blurring of the water. I really like the composition, which draws the eye into the scene really nicely. It does look as if the background of the scene is slightly soft, which is a shame because it does look as if there's some really nice texture on the background rocks, and that would have added a little bit extra to this image. I score this image 24. Image 40, Waterfall. I like the composition of this one. The waterfall is the subject and it fills the frame. The colours are nice and there's good texture in the water. There seems to be a bit of blur in the rocks and plants around the top of the frame, and there's a really bright spot on top left hand corner, possibly glare from the wet rock blowing the highlights, and these elements are a bit of a distraction for me. The leaves coming in from the bottom right also have some blur, but I actually don't find these as much of a distraction as it looks intentional. I score this image 22. And now the results. I would just like to say again how difficult this competition has been to judge, as all of the images are of such a high standard. And well done to the club that came out on top.